Hey guys, and welcome back to the CAT Tutor. Today we will be doing Chapter 4, Networks. In this chapter we will be handling wide area networks, the internet as an example of a network, internet services, grid computing, cloud computing, government internet services and information, internet connections and access, broadband, bandwidth, uploading, and downloading. Now, for those of you who don't know what a network is, any computer device, this includes cell phones, laptops, tablets, phablets, all those lovely little things. When you connect them and they talk to each other, that's a network. A wide area network, on the other hand, well, let's just say it's a big network. It's a very, very big network. Not like the one you have at home, not like the one you have at school. Bigger. This thing can span across entire continents, countries. It can even go over the entire planet. Now, an example of such a network is the internet. The purpose of a WAN would be to connect a bunch of branches of the same company. Think like KFC or Walmart. They have branches all over the place, scattered all across the world, all across countries. Several, for example, Ramon's Pizza. They have a bunch of branches in the same country, spread all over the place. But they have to stay connected with one singular network. And this is what a WAN does. It connects them all, even though they are spread all across a country or all across a continent sometimes. Groups that would use this would be fast food networks like KFC, university campuses like UNISA, Microsoft companies, and a bunch more. Now, the internet, as an example of this WAN, is the most common one, something that you probably all already know about. It stretches right over the planet with billions and billions of devices connected to it at any given point in time. Now, remember, when we refer to an internet, it is a network made up of networks. This is where the word internet came from in the first place. Now, there are a great many internet services. The first, RealTime Messaging. You would know this as chat or instant messaging. Online chat programs allow you to almost immediately send and receive messages. This includes text messages and multimedia. Now, for those of you who do not know what multimedia means, multimedia is messages containing pictures, voice notes, videos, sound, all of those lovely little add-ons. Anything except text. Now, examples of these chat apps or programs would be WhatsApp, Facebook Messenger, and iMessage. There are many more examples of this out there. I'm sure at least 2 or 3 you've heard of. Now, as to everything, there are advantages and disadvantages to real-time messaging or chat. Advantages would include things like it allows you to chat in real time, hence the fact it's called instant messaging. Messages are delivered immediately. You can also see whether the message has been read. This allows people to be connected right across the world 24/7. You can speak to multiple people, in fact, during things as such like conferences and meetings. Well, preferably not meetings. At least don't get caught. But during conferences and meetings, you can talk to multiple people without having now to shout across tables, letting everybody hear your conversation. It's not a one-way message the whole time between you and one other person. You can talk to 50 different people at the same time, as I'm sure you know with WhatsApp. Disadvantages of this, however, and yes, there are, is because of the fact that your message is delivered immediately. You can't review your message. Now, what does this mean? With things like emails, you can first go type your entire message out, go over your entire message, check your entire message, and think, maybe I'll rather save this message for now, I'll send it a bit later. This is not always possible with real-time messaging. Your messages aren't always saved. That brings us to the second point. Now, the problem is, let's say your app crashes. Sometimes what is called a draft is saved of your message, but it's not always saved. Sometimes your entire message is thrown away. You can have typed out a very long message for the person, your lovely little crush, a love letter that is 7 pages long, but you forgot to send it, and now when you went back into the chat, it's gone. This is an unfortunate truth. WhatsApp does not always save messages, just like Facebook Messenger does not always save messages. Sometimes it does, sometimes it doesn't. Disadvantage. Now, instant messaging, and this is one of the biggest problems, takes away the face-to-face personal experience of communicating in person. If you're pissed, if you are really angry with someone, and you want to make them understand that anger, let's face it, a little fire emoji just does not have the same effect as a red hot face in front steaming up the person's glasses. That experience is gone. On another note, you get another internet service called Voice over Internet Protocol, otherwise known as VoIP. About most of you should be familiar with this. You should have crossed it somewhere in your life by now. Most common example of VoIP would be Skype. Now, for those of you who don't know what VoIP is, it's a protocol that allows you to make voice calls over the internet. No, not pick up a telephone, call your mum and dad that's in England for some obscure reason. This allows you to call them over the internet. Now, this is done by converting sound to data and then taking that data and sending it over the internet to the recipient or the person receiving this. There it is converted back into sound and they can hear you. Now, contrary to popular belief, this does not necessarily include video. Yes, you get programs such as Skype that does include video. However, you can disable that feature. Just like in apps such as TeamSpeak and Discord, where only voice is transferred. All of these are examples of VoIP, Voice over Internet Protocol. Now, as with all things, it has advantages and disadvantages. Advantages including that, let's face it, it's expensive to travel. It's very expensive to travel. And with the times that they are, we can't always travel. So, VoIP apps such as Skype, Discord, and TeamSpeak saves a lot of travel expenses. The audio and video information can be shared in real time, and it enables long distance collaboration. Now, what is meant by that is, let's say you are working on a little experiment. You're cooking for the first time in your life. Is your parents cooks? No, they're not. Are you scared you will burn the house down? Maybe just a little. So what you're going to do is you're going to contact a chef somewhere else in the world, and you're going to ask them for help so that you don't have the ambulance and fire trucks outside your house. Now, this video conference that you have, they can teach you live how to not burn your kitchen down while making toast. Other examples of advantages for VoIP would be that it is cheaper, and yes, it is, very much so. It is cheaper than a telephone call. Disadvantages, on the other hand, would be that it is pretty expensive to set up and maintain. It requires an active and stable internet connection. So in other words, if you have power outages, I would not suggest this because power outages can disrupt communication. In other words, your line dies. Simple as that. Another protocol that you will come to know is file transfer protocol. A protocol used to transfer files, as said in the name, in a network between servers and users. This is done by setting up rules that you have to follow so that other people cannot access these files while they are being sent over this network. Now, examples of these rules would be that you have to set a password, you have to set up a username, and only those people will be able to access it. It is ideal for file sharing, even in large industries. Now, examples of this would be FileZilla server. An advantage of this would be that it is relatively easy to use. Multiple file directories can be sent at the same time. Now, if you don't know what that means, you can send lots of stuff all at the same time. File transfer progress is not lost if your connection fails. Now, some of you have downloaded stuff before. I won't ask what, I won't ask why. Not that you would answer me in any way. But some of you have downloaded things before, or even uploaded things before, and then the internet died. Or the lights went off. And then you had to start all over again. And after you have dried your pillow that was drowned in tears, you would hope that your file was not corrupt, and you would start the transfer all over again. Well, good news, you don't have to do that. Not with FTP. With FTP, the entire progress that you have gotten up until that point is not lost. File transfers can be set up to run at times convenient to you. In other words, you don't have to bother the rest of the people in the day. You can transfer your stuff in the night while you're sleeping without having to lift a finger. Disadvantages, on the other hand, is that data, username, and passwords are shared in plain text, which makes it pretty vulnerable to hacking. Some training is required to use it effectively, and it is difficult to monitor any mishandled data and find the source of the problem. In other words, if anybody went and they accidentally, deleted something they shouldn't have, it's going to be pretty difficult to figure out where it came from, where it started, what to do about it. Just remember to breathe. Not all FTP services encrypt your data, which makes it vulnerable to attack. Some are nice. Some take your stuff, they jumble it all in a ball so that nobody else can understand it except the person you're sending it to. Some don't. So be careful. Streaming, which is what all of you live for. Streaming allows the user to view live events, series, movies, history, sport, other events over the internet. Live. You can rewind this. No, you cannot go into the future with this, but you can watch it anytime, any place, anywhere, where you want. Examples of networks that provide this service is Twitch, Netflix, and Showmax. Now, the advantages of this is that you are in control of what you're watching. Streams can be paused, rewound when needed, and it saves storage space on your device. You don't have to download the video to watch it. Disadvantages, however, are that you do need a fast and stable internet connection. Streaming uses up a lot of data. Let's face it, it does. And unfortunately, streaming can become addictive and hazardous to your health. Let's face it, if you sit in front of your TV all day watching Netflix, you're gonna become a couch potato. It's not the healthiest lifestyle. Cloud-based file sharing. The use of servers to store and share data and resources over the internet. Now, if any of you have ever shared a file with someone, or, let's take this a step back. Let's say one person did their homework, because we know you do this. Let's say one person did their homework. That one person is the smartest person in the group. The rest, not necessarily. Now this person is going to go and help the others. They are not going to go to each and everyone's house separately and go help them with their homework. They're going to call a little group meeting. He's going to put his book down and everybody's going to look at it and want a piece. But they are going to come together to one spot and share that information. This is cloud-based file sharing. Except cloud-based file sharing is on the internet. We take one server, one little place, we pick it like Google Drive, we put all our stuff on it, and then all of our people that we get passwords to and that's in our little group, they can access this one file from there, easy peasy, lemon squeezy. Examples of groups that allow this is Dropbox, Mediafire, Google Drive, iCloud, Microsoft OneDrive. You would have heard of multiple options by now. Now the advantage of this would be it is very easy to use. You simply drag and drop your files into the service. It saves data and bandwidth because you don't have to run to every single person and share it with every single person. You just have to send it to one place and they do the rest. It's accessible from any internet capable device, be it a laptop, a tablet, a cell phone, a smartphone, an iPhone, an iPad, so on and so forth. Your supercomputer you're hiding in your basement from your parents because for reasons unknown. It is convenient and fast way of sharing files. Its disadvantages, however, include that the files may be insecure as more people gain access to it. Let's face it, you share your homework with one person, they share it with the next, share it with the next, share it with the next, share it with the next. Why? Because they're just like that. And then sooner or later your teacher finds out you were sharing things you weren't supposed to be sharing, like homework, and trouble. Now, file sharing has a similar problem. The more people you share your code with, the more likely it is that stuff is gonna go missing, or stuff is going to get deleted, or stuff is going to get edited. Either way, something bad is going to happen. Files can be misplaced or accidentally deleted, as previously mentioned, by yourself or somebody you granted access to it. It requires an internet connection. Logically, it is on the internet after all. So, you do need an internet connection to access these files. A problem going hand in hand with that is that you need electricity to be accessing these files. Additional software may be required. Now, not all of these services require you to download an app or anything, but some of them do, so choose wisely. Now, grid computing, on the other hand, something that you may or may not actually be familiar with, is a computer model that is being connected to a network. Think of a bunch of computers, like in a lot of them. Stuff them in a small room, or you know what, don't even stuff them in a small room. Spread them across an entire country, but still link them together. Now, tell all of those computers at the same time to solve a problem. Now, have you ever told one scientist to find the solution for something? Then they go and they must struggle for centuries. Sometimes they don't even solve it before they keel over, but sometimes they do, but it took them like 80 years. Now, give that same problem to a group of scientists, added that don't dislike each other too much, but give them to a group of scientists, and that same problem will be solved in a fraction of the time. Why? Because of collaboration. Now, grid computing is teamwork, but with computers instead of people. You take one simple little math problem. Well, let's make it not so simple. One super complex math problem. And you give it to one computer to solve. That computer could take a very, very long time to solve it. Give it to a bunch of computers, though. It'll be solved in no time. Now, examples of grid computing, added good examples of grid computing, would be SCA or MeerKAT, also known as the Square Kilometre Array here in South Africa. Another example would be the World Community Grid. There are even examples of space programs that you can take part in, intelligence programs that take all these super huge amounts of data that's collected from your satellites, and you help process it. While you're sleeping, you give them access to your computer, and then they use your computer CPU to process all these super complex stuff to see, if there's any patterns or cool stuff, aliens, that type of thing. This is an actual thing, I promise you. You can go search it up if you don't believe me. An advantage of it can be that it can solve much, much more difficult problems in a fraction of the time. It doesn't require any advanced hardware, just your normal sad CPU that can't even play Skyrim on it. And the computers can absorb other computers' workloads. So if your neighbor's computer suddenly dies, then your computer can take the workload from it, if you wanted to add it. So this makes the system very reliable. It's not going to be that piece of workload suddenly goes missing, but instead it's distributed, it's chopped up into little pieces and dished out to the rest of the computers in the system. Now, the disadvantage of this is that you do require a bit of training on how to do this. You can't just jump in. And the other disadvantage is that it does require a large number of people to take part in these programs. If just one or two people take part in it, really, that's not going to make much of a dent. But on the other hand, if thousands of people took part in it, easy peasy lemon squeezy. Cloud computing, on the other hand, is the use of hardware and or software on a server on the internet. It allows the user to store data without using any of their own devices' storage space. Examples could be Amazon Web Services, Microsoft Azure, Google Cloud Platform, the whole 9 yards. Basically, you can use software and stuff and hardware and everything that you don't actually have. You can use it or access it via the internet. Advantages would be that, you're using stuff you don't have, and software you don't have. But if the server undergoes maintenance, on the other hand, you may not have access to any of the services. There's always a security risk, and you do not control that platform. Other advantages would be that the platform is constantly managed and updated and therefore quite reliable. It can be accessed through any internet-capable device. Government internet services and information. Now, government internet services allow you to skip long queues. Let's face it, who wants to stand in a long queue for 3 hours? By using their online services, you can skip these queues. Doing things like paying bills, obtaining simple information, common examples being paying television licenses, electoral information, submitting tax returns, otherwise known as e-filing. Smart ID and passport applications, even online tertiary applications, can now be done online. It used to be that you had to stand in very long lines for very long times to do all of these things. Now you don't have to. Welcome to the fantastic generation that is us. Internet connections and access. Now the big problem between the switch, modem and router is that nobody knows the difference these days. Okay, a switch, it's simply there to connect your computers to each other. That's it. It doesn't connect you to the internet, not necessarily, and it doesn't magically give you other connections to other networks. It's simply there to connect all of the computers to the same network. A modem, on the other hand, for those of you who do not know, is actually an acronym. It stands for modulate and demodulate. This is the lovely little device that gives you the connection to the cloud or the internet. As seen in the figure below, you can see how a switch and a modem can be used together to connect a network to the internet. A router, on the other hand, is like a 2-for-1 package. It can serve as a switch and as a modem at the same time. It can connect several computers as it has several slots, and it can connect straight to the cloud. So it organizes and routes all of the data from the network to the internet whilst connecting all the computers to each other. Note the difference, please. Now, connection type is a very, very, very important thing when it comes to internet connections. When choosing an internet connection, the following must be considered. The internet's speed, measured in megabytes per second, the data cap of the connection, the costs, logically, of the connection, and the equipment required in said connection. Now, an ISP, or Internet Service Provider, is a company or a group that has access to a stable internet connection and provides access to that connection to others for a monthly fee. Note, it is wise to compare the price of bandwidth and connections offered by several ISPs to find the best option, also the cheapest option. Now, access points is something very, very important when it comes to deciding which connection you want to choose. If you just have yourself, your little corner of the world that wants to connect to the internet because you want to play World of Warcraft or something, then let's face it, do you really need a extremely strong, like 50 megabyte line? You don't really need that. You just need enough. Then you're happy, you're satisfied in your corner of the world. But on the other hand, if you are running a gaming area, an entire, or a school for that example, if you are running a school with hundreds of computers in it connected to the internet at the same time, then let's face it, you're going to need a pretty strong line, pretty big line too, to satisfy all of those YouTube videos. Now, trying to satisfy that connection for only a few people would be easy, but trying to satisfy it for a big bunch of them, that's a little bit more difficult. The more users, the higher the bandwidth will have to be. The more access points in the network, the more security measures have to be put in place. Let's put it this way. If you have 7 houses, or at least if you have 1 house and 7 doors into this house, you're going to have a problem. But if you have 1 door on the other hand, or maybe 2 doors into this house, then it's a bit easier to figure out where the thief got in, don't you think? Data transfer speed. The speed at which data is downloaded and uploaded plays a large role in determining whether or not the connection is really worth its price tag. Note, A more expensive package for high-speed connection would be more suited for a large industry and business, while a cheaper but bit slower connection would satisfy a person using a connection for entertainment purposes at home, watching Netflix and stuff. Caps and bundles. Well, let's face it. There's no use in having a high-speed connection if you can only download one picture and then stop for the rest of the month. This is where data caps come in. A data cap is an ISP imposed limit on the amount of data that you're allowed to transfer during a certain time period, usually a month, for a fee. After this amount is exceeded, after you've downloaded too much or uploaded too much, after you've used too much data, this ISP can throttle or slow your connection considerably. In fact, if you go too far, they can slow your connection so much that you basically wouldn't have one. A data bundle is a preset amount of data usage that you are allowed. Depending on which type of bundle it is, it can be limited to a time period or not at all. Broadband is a term that refers to a fast data transfer connection that allows the user to send data over multiple channels. Basically, you can watch YouTube, Netflix, go on Facebook, on Instagram and Twitter at the same time, do everything at the same time because this connection allows it. It's fast enough, it's multitasking, it's sweet. Examples of this would be strong ADSL lines, 3G lines, and fiber lines. Bandwidth is the amount of data that can be transferred between points A and B in a certain time period, like megabyte per second. Note, upload speed will always be slower than download speed. This is because no ads and additional useless background data is processed during the upload process, and therefore it needs less data to upload than downloading or browsing. Let's face it, when you download or browse, there are stupid little ads in the background, annoying ads in the background, that just won't go away. But your system is processing them, and unfortunately that does require data. This is why your download speeds will always be higher than your upload speeds. Downloading is the copying or transferring of data from one computer to your own, most often via the internet. Uploading, on the other hand, is copying or transferring data from one computer to another, usually a server, and usually from your computer, most often via the internet, same as downloading. And that brings us to the end of this lesson. I really hope that it's helped you guys. I really hope that you can understand all of the work now better. Thank you for watching. Do not forget to subscribe and enjoy your week.